remaining. You fought well.
Well, Riot went and did it. They made a competitive FPS that's really similar to Counter-Strike, but also one that's, well, extraordinarily different. After getting my first matches in during Valorant's closed beta period, here's my first impressions as an FPS player. Valorant is plenty deep. My number one worry was that Valorant wouldn't nail the fundamentals of Counter-Strike style movement and gunplay, the foundation for techniques like flicking, boosting, and pop flashing that give CS so much of its depth and character. Stuff like movement speed can seem mundane, but the way things like this are tuned matters a lot. The good news is that Valorant's movement and weapon behavior seems to create sound, deep gunplay. Crouch peeking is viable, but it feels slower than CS. The movement penalty for being hit is pretty severe. Like CS, crossing gaps is deadly, and you're probably not going to dance out of a bad situation. It'll take more time to feel this stuff out, but so far I'm encouraged that the addition of character abilities hasn't undermined the focus on raw technique. Players sure can make a lot of walls. Valorant doesn't have conventional smoke grenades, but 5 of its 9 characters wield different walling abilities that damage, body block, and otherwise obstruct choke points. Viper's poisonous toxic screen is particularly powerful, as it can be placed once, has a huge variable length span, and once it's set up, can be reactivated anytime from any position on the map. Sage's barrier orbs, which are purchasable consumables, are a stack of giant ice cubes that can be destroyed. Brimstone's sky smoke can be precision targeted to different map areas, launched instantly at the start of a round to block key points.
Smoke's down.
When 2 or 3 of these obstructions are popping off in succession, it can feel pretty annoying, and if I'm attacking, I either have to wait for these effects to resolve or rotate to a different bomb site. I don't love the idea of a meta that partly revolves around how many times a team can delay a push. Fragging feels good. With a familiar style of movement and Counter-Strike style recoil patterns in place, the basic joy of landing headshots, crouching to dodge them, peeking, rotating, and operating Valorant's guns is all pleasant. I've got to give a hat tip to Riot's artist for the stylized blood volcano that erupts whenever you score a headshot. Your eyes register that particle effect in a nanosecond. But the guns themselves lack identity. One of the disadvantages to not having a weapon set based on real-world weaponry is that Riot has to build the identities of its guns from scratch. A few matches in, Counter-Strike players will have it all figured out. The Phantom's like the M4, the Vandal's the AK, the Ghost is the USP, the Operator is the Op. We get it. Very cute, Riot. But I do sympathize with players new to Counter-Strike who won't grasp the deeply embedded nuances and differences between these all-black, similar-looking guns. I've seen teammates pick up the Guardian thinking it was a Phantom or a Vandal, ARs with similar silhouettes, only to jab mouse 1 in the middle of a firefight and die, not realizing that the Guardian is semi-auto. Hopefully the introduction of more skins will help players form a stronger visual relationship with these guns, just as a Dragonlore AWP is an iconic sight on any CSGO map. BUSTIN makes me feel good. On the other hand, every time I buy the Ghost pistol, I just toggle it in and out of my hands a few times to see and hear this. 13 rounds to win. Cutting CSGO's 16 rounds to just 13 is a positive change that reduces the overall match length, but not at the expense of giving teams enough time to figure each other out. Again, with Counter-Strike, this whole type of game is about iterating on tactics, going left one round, going right the next, changing things up on the fly, and adapting over a series of rounds. It's still a good formula. A forgettable roster. I don't think Riot's going to be launching a Valorant pop group anytime soon. Valorant's characters are unremarkable. They look a little like a set of 3D printed knockoff toys based on Overwatch. Character selection screens don't display the kind of elegant animated portrait of each character that you see in other games, and the level of model detail doesn't come close to that of Apex Legends. This is probably one of the compromises Riot made in order to get Valorant's system requirements so low. The game probably runs on graphing calculators. To be fair, CSGO's recent attempt to cram actual characters into itself wasn't very exciting, so Valorant isn't being outdone in this respect. But even with hardly any in-game expression, Rainbow Six Siege's operators feel much more distinct. It's going to take a few $1 million cinematics for Riot to make us care about Phoenix, Jett, and the rest of these other guys. Lovely data. Valorant's end-of-match screen provides some rich information to dig through. Which players drew first blood most often, an econ rating measuring how much you spent against the damage you inflicted, and an average combat score, your damage output plus weighted points for securing early frags. The timeline screen shows a full match history and highlights your best round. It's just excellent to have this stuff in at such an early stage. Game developers collect a lot of this data for their own internal balancing insights, but most competitive games are terrible at helping players understand their performance through data. 5x5. Here's a really tiny thing that I love. Whatever voice codec Valorant is using is crystal clear.
They're all dead. Defuse. They're all dead. I didn't know.
Ultimate abilities. Mixed feelings. This is a tough topic. So, Valorant's ults aren't as big and insta-killy as Overwatch's, thank goodness. But speaking as a longtime Counter-Strike player, they do add an unwelcome ace card layer that I just don't want in a technical CS-inspired FPS. It's one of the bigger reminders that Valorant is not the less is more experience that CSGO is. I'll probably warm up to ults a little bit as I understand how they fit into the overall experience. I did have this memorable moment last night where I revived a teammate with my ult, accidentally using him as bait to score 2 kills. But for now, they're not the reason that I'm playing. The other thing I'm frustrated by is that although you earn ult points by registering kills or by dying, Valorant also makes them a static resource on the map that you can pick up, which is an incredibly uninspiring piece of design. Collecting these small orbs from their set positions on the map, it's the most bolted on part of the game right now. I would love to see these pickups removed entirely. Readable art. There are no deep shadows in Valorant, and the color palette is dominated by beige and gray. Compared to Overwatch's bright pinks and blues and oranges, it's a bit bland looking, but it does make each map very easy to read, not unlike the revisions Valve has made to its map set in CSGO over the last few years. The minimap is also generous with the information it provides. You can see the entire map, all of your teammates, where they're looking, and the locations of recent deaths. So that's what I think of Valorant so far, but I'm sure our impression of Riot's first FPS will continue to evolve, just as all games do these days.
One enemy remaining.
Squashed.